So, welcome to Cincinnati NAACP Truth to Power on Sin Digital Media Network. My name is Nicole. I'm the second Vice President, Criminal Justice Chair for the Cincinnati NAACP. And I am here with a very, very special guest, Officer Fred Gilmer, Academy instructor. And I don't have any warrants or
No.
KP is no. We got to make sure it's clear.
No.
Okay, so I'm gonna be free after this show.
Good to go.
Good to go.
Right.
That's what I want to hear. And
Okay.
Truth to Power is the podcast that will give you information, motivation, and inspiration to be the change in your communities because you are the movement. And the president of the Cincinnati chapter NAACP is Robert Richardson Sr., and he sends all his well wishes to all of you. Thank you again for tuning in and listening. Again, to my invited guest, Officer Gilmer, he will be doing a presentation on what I believe is one of the most thought-provoking, honest, and transforming lectures on cultural differences and perspective and just building better race relationships between police and community. It's called Empathy Through American History, LLC, because he got it incorporated. This is the business, support black business. And it's really, really impressive. And I can't wait for people to see for themselves. But before we go into Empathy Through American History, Officer Gilmer, please tell our listening audience a little bit about you, your background, and what you do.
Yes, again, Fred Gilmer. I'm happy to be here today. Thank you for inviting me. I with the Cincinnati Police Department, and I actually train at the Police Academy. So I've been on the department for about 20 years now. Time does fly. I can't believe I just said
20 years. You don't look
Yeah.
over 20, barely.
Right.
Wow. Black don't crack.
So with that being said, I've been training for quite some time now, since 2006, and I've had the opportunity to see individuals come in and out and come in as a recruit and graduate as a police officer. And through that time, I saw some things that the police department, not just Cincinnati, I believe nationally, when you're talking about justice as far as police, criminal justice, you're talking about training that's needed. And I thought that it would be a great opportunity to try to work on an issue that seems to be always, rearing its ugly head every so often when you're talking about dealing with African Americans and the police. And what are those issues and how do we get through those issues? And so,
So, okay, I guess we can go into, really the bulk of this conversation. What is Empathy Through American History, ETAH?
So I came up with ETAH, stands for Empathy Through American History, and highlighting African Americans. And so with that being said, I emphasize American history because we as African Americans we are a part of American history, so I don't separate the two.
Great part.
And so with that being said, it's empathy through American history. The reason why I use empathy is because in order to truly understand an individual and in order to get empathy, you have to understand their history.
Right.
And I think it's hard when a lot of our history, American history, has been kept from us, not been taught in our classes. And so therefore, you have, not just myself, you have a lot of the recruits and officers who come into any program may lack information needed as far as understanding, African Americans.
Right.
And so
it's critical when you're dealing with some individuals who may come from communities that don't have a lot of diversity. So, throughout their life, their perception of people of a different race could be a little screwed, not exactly the norm. And until you really engage and encounter with individuals, can you really, empathize and see people and not come with the fear element, which is something that I know you address for a lot of people. And it doesn't necessarily always mean a person is racist, but that lack of understanding can put you in situations where you don't typically, it's not norm, it's not a norm for you, so it's uncomfortable, and your reaction can sometimes not be as positive or well thought out. And so I think that what you're doing is awesome, and what you developed. So, and is there like a section or a subject in the lecture that you can briefly summarize and explain why you felt it was important to include in your lecture?
Well, in my presentation, I actually mentioned, I start from the beginning when you talk about 1619 and right into mass incarceration. And a lot of people, kind of stay away from that. But you have to understand, from the beginning.
Yeah.
Here
years.
how we are seen and where does that come from. And I don't want to put the blame, and I'm not here to blame, say you're this way because
Right.
we were born into a society that has set it up for us to look at each other in a different way.
Right.
A lot of our information that we receive are from the media. And so with that being said, that's what we bring to the table. All officers, I believe, in their heart truly want to serve, but with the information that they have, and so sometimes you may not even know what information you're lacking. This is how I'm going to respond, trying to give the best help I can with the information that I've received. And so this is actually just giving you more information, giving you another tool added to your tool belt, and understanding how do I, what's going on, why do they, when I mean they, African Americans, respond the way we do, why are we upset, and understanding that, and this isn't just for whites, it's for African Americans themselves. We ourselves are lacking information, lacking understanding of our own histories, and so it can benefit on both ends.
Absolutely. So, with that being said, do you feel that your officers will even be willing to receive this information and help transform, their way of thinking? Do you think this is going to be a difficult lecture to get people to?
To be honest, when you're talking about race, it's a tough topic to bring up. And so with that being said, I've already started teaching it, and the officers have been receiving it.
Really?
I would have to say that it's been tough, but at the end of the presentation, at least I have an understanding, a better understanding. That's the feel I have received from the officers. It was tough in the beginning, because I'm not like that. That can't be me, or I don't understand, and I think that I'm trying to push for more time for dialogue. I think that we need to have those healthy dialogues in discussing a race.
Right.
And usually the wall goes up, and as African Americans, we don't have that privilege to separate the two, and so we have to make it aware to everyone that we have to come to the table and have a decent conversation on race. And with that being said, this is allowed the platform for that conversation to occur. At least to understand. So my purpose is to push value. And pushing value into African Americans, you have to first understand.
You have to understand
history.
The plight,
So,
and I think, because I've had the opportunity to view some of it, and it's really well put together and very thoughtful. And I think, when we have these very difficult discussions about race, we have to, all of us have to check ourselves.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Because it's real easy to get into accusatory mode, and for people to feel like, who are on the opposite end, to feel like they're being attacked, and then they shut down, and then nothing can be heard. And we can't get to a solution-oriented space if we're not able to listen and hear each other. So I know you really took the time to get all perspectives, all sides of the equation, just to arrive at a place of understanding.
Yes.
I was looking at something. You watch Trevor Noah Daily Show? I reference that a lot, but that's one of my favorite shows. And he had a skit one time, and I thought it was hilarious because he basically had one of his correspondents is this white gentleman. He's new on there, and he was basically dressed up like in some costume, but everyone know Trevor Noah is basically the boss. It's his show.
Yeah.
So he was making him do things and everything, and he was just like in this costume, and then he was just like, you know what? I quit. I'm invoking my white privilege. And then this man came over in a butler suit and just like lifted him off the ground. He was like, I'm out of here, and just walked away. But it was just hilarious because, you know, we throw that out a lot, like, yo, your white privilege, and there's some people like white people that think like, I've been through a lot. There's no privilege for me. You know what I'm saying? You think like all of them have butlers and being escorted in the limo and everything else. We say it in a way that, you know, we want to evoke an emotion to let them know that their circumstances is a lot better than someone in the African American space.
Right.
But at the same time, not in all situations, we have to remember that, you know, they have their struggles too.
Sure.
It may not be to every degree like what the African American plight is in America, but it's hard for them to see themselves as being, you know, so privileged in a lot of ways in comparison to, you know, you're in a situation like a police involved shooting, or you're in the criminal justice system and one person is getting 20 years while another person is getting 1 year, until you're, you know, at a job interview and you can't get the job, but, you know, the other person basically, you know, has things on their record, you know, don't have much experience, but they're good to go.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like they may not see that day to day, but that's kind of where, you know, in our cry for justice and equality, where we're trying to arrive to, and in their own space, they're living their daily lives. They still have their struggles,
Yes.
but they may not identify with the word white privilege,
Right.
you know, in every circumstance. But some do. Some white people, they actually get it and they understand. Like, you know, I know that I don't have to worry too much if my teenage son is out and that something might happen to him. I don't have to have that talk. You know what I mean? Where African American families, you know, you kind of do at a certain age have to be, you know, mindful to what can happen to them just because of the color of their skin. So, not to throw us all off, and I digress. Let's see, because I got more questions for Officer Gilmer. Okay, so the next question is now it's a little bit serious. We recently had incidents where a white and black officer was caught on body cam using the N-word. And many organizations, including us, the NAACP, were calling for the immediate termination of both officers. Now, do you believe your training can change these officers to be more culturally sensitive to the community they're policing?
I think learning or having an understanding of the history here in this country, you can gain. Just about, you have a different aspect, a different mindset on what's going on. I would say I can't see you not gaining any ground by this class. You know, and so with that being said, when you're talking about situations like that pop up, I can't say this is the end all. But
right.
really, and truthfully, you're talking about in each person's mindset and in their heart. And so only God can tell that. But I would say this is an extra tool to look at and say, okay, this is good or not good, or whatever the case may be. But you have an option. You know, you have to have other options than what we do have.
Right.
You know, and this is another option to go to that can assist and answer those questions. Because those questions do come up, you know.
Yeah.
And,
I almost compare it to, and I can't think of the wonderful woman's name, but you know, the lady that developed the blue eye, method, where she had a whole classroom of her kids, and you know, she told one class, like, you know, everyone with blue eyes, you're smart and everything else, and the brown eyed people, you know, made them, and it was a lesson to show them, you know, discrimination in America, and how just these beautiful, sweet kids, you know, that was playing together all at once, how easy it was when you put the dividers and you made them feel different, like the ones with brown eyes actually felt less than, actually, you know, they were usually really good in certain subjects, and all of a sudden, because of the negativity that was placed on them just because they had brown eyes, it made them feel like they weren't capable, and they did worse on they, you know, subject matters. And it was like a real test to how the disease of racism and hate can, you know, collapse and destroy a race of people and people's minds when you target them that way. And so it was a lesson in race.
Right.
And I think a lot of the things that you have in your program touches its lessons in race, and you cannot walk away and not see things a little bit differently, whether you're black or white or you know any race.
Yeah,
right.
Good point. And I believe in that experiment to just having the other individuals feel, you know, what some have to feel all the time. You have the option even to walk away from this scenario. But that's a great that was a great experiment she had going on years ago. So you probably already mentioned this, but just in more emphasis, why do you feel the program is important for law enforcement to have, and will this be a mandatory training? That is the key, is trying to push that into life there, as far as making this mandatory. I would have to say that pushing this, or as far as taking this class, is very important, simply because you have an opportunity to look at someone else's life or race where you never had that opportunity to. You know, and what other place are you ever going to get that opportunity to? So I would have to say, how can an individual have true empathy, true understanding, if you don't know the individual's past, or where they come from, or why they are doing what they do? And so this helps. You know, this helps, whether it's brief or whether you spend an extended amount of time with the individual. The fact that you know something helps you to respond in a different way, or the most appropriate way.
And I like you use this analogy with the doctor, and you know, you recall, I've heard you say that before, and it made so much sense with the
help me with that.
How a doctor, you know, you can't go to a doctor's office without.
Oh yeah. So when you have an issue that happens, or a situation that happens, I always use the analogy saying, well, I wouldn't go to a surgeon and ask that surgeon to do surgery on me if this surgeon had an opportunity to look at my health, my medical records, right? And so, with that being said, I wouldn't have, you know, somebody to actually start doing something, as far as when you're talking about making a decision of locking someone up, or doing something that is, I mean, really can have an effect on families out there, without understanding the history, without knowing what I'm stepping into. So it's the same thing, you know. It only enhances or helps us move forward as we make decisions.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, again, it's another tool. And I believe that, you know, to do a profession like such as policing, it is it's an honor, and it isn't an easy job. And with that, we need all the tools we can get.
Absolutely. It makes me think of a recent situation where an 11-year-old, which you can check the Cincinnati NAACP Facebook page, we post all the information happening all throughout the country, but there was an 11-year-old recently arrested for, the claim was that because he refused to pledge allegiance to the flag. You heard about that?
I haven't.
And so the teacher, which the teacher that was there was like a substitute, wasn't a regular teacher. And, after it was all said and done, it showed that policy did not demand that students pledge allegiance to the flag, but it was the correctional officers inside of elementary school. So, let's keep that in mind too, that ultimately decided to arrest the young man. And the mother, I've seen her on national news, very distraught, very heartbroken that her son at that age had to experience that for that reason. They're holding strong, saying that he was arrested because he was just being defiant. But even still, just like what you just said there, and I don't even know if the officer was black or white. It's neither here or there. Just not having the understanding and the empathy. That correctional officer or whoever could have just pulled the young man to the side and talked to him a little bit, and it didn't have to go to an extreme like, I'm going to show you and I'm going to further push the prison to the preschool to prison pipeline, which it wasn't just the correctional officer but that teacher elevating the situation to that extent. What happened to calling the parents? Whatever happened to having a conference discussion at the principal office? Why does this situation elevate to a young boy being locked up? It just made no sense. So, but what you just saying, what you did, hopefully this program or your initiative is spread nationwide, because it's needed nationwide to a large degree. And I think it really would be effective and impactful in people's lives. So the last question I have, what are your goals for this program ultimately?
Number one is to continue teaching at the academy, at least get through the police department here and have some knowledge of what I've been trying to mention as far as the empathy through American history. And then branch out, possibly other entities who want to hear it, and sky's the limit.
Right. I heard that.
Right.
Well, let me tell you that it is our plan, or at least my plan through the Criminal Justice Committee, to create a resolution for our national convention so that we make this a situation where all the branches throughout the United States, NAACP branches, support your initiative. So I'm going to need your help to write up a resolution, and if it becomes adopted by the national branch, then, that'll be the objective of all the NAACPs, and hopefully we can get this spread across the country. So for everyone, I hope to see you next Thursday at our general membership meeting, which is every fourth Thursday of the month. And this is our Black History edition, and it's Empathy Through American History, February the 28th, located at the Community Action Agency, 1740 Langdon Farm Road at 6 p.m. So you want to get there, bring your family, bring your friends, bring white people, because we need to have this conversation. We need to have this conversation with all our white brothers and sisters and everybody who cares and want to arrive to a space of understanding, equality, and justice for all. And that just sounds like the American way.
Good. Good stuff.
That just sounds like the American way. So we hope to see you there. And so other discussions, and you could chime in if you like. We only got a few more minutes anyway. The Empire star Jussie Smollett is now being accused of staging his own attack. Say it ain't so. Say it ain't so. Say it ain't so. So the story, right before Black History Month, the country was shocked to hear that a well-known celebrity was the victim of a racial homophobic attack. His accounts was that he was walking late night to get some food at a Subway restaurant, and two men yelled out some homophobic slurs, beat him up, wrapped a noose around his neck, and poured bleach on him. And that they were wearing MAGA hats, and they had left saying MAGA country. This is MAGA country. So from that, of course, everyone was in the uproar. he had sustained injuries, which I find it kind of hard to fake, because if I'm paying someone to stage an attack, I really don't want them to bruise up my face that I make my money with, and I really don't want to have my ribs all bruised up. But, reports said that he had sustained injuries. But police did find the men in question, at least they believe to, and after questioning, the two men had a different account. The Chicago police identified them, and the first blow was that they were black, because we was led to believe that these were white men in MAGA hats. So these were black men, actually some Nigerian men, brothers, and so that was the first blow. If we got some sound effects, that's like boom, punch. The second blow, the two men in question admits to doing this under the pretense that they were paid to do it by Jussie Smollett, and allegedly it's because he didn't garner enough attention from a written threat that was sent to him on a different occasion. So I'm like, WTF, what the? Now, of course, even at this point, Jussie Smollett adamantly denies any actions of complicity, but has no longer continued to cooperate with the police. They want to have him come in for questioning. Now, if it's a lie, he's lying about all of this. If he's lying about all of this, he could be facing prison time, and it could very well be the end of his career, and that would be very, very unfortunate. Also, many came to his defense. Ellen DeGeneres, Zendaya, Senator Kamala Harris, a candidate who's running for president, including myself truly. And if this turns out to be a lie, I'm going to be just very disappointed, because I genuinely empathize with him. Here go that word, empathy. And I just remember being very, very disgusted, feeling that in 2019 that someone could attack an individual full of hate, and just be full of hate for the very reason because he's African American and gay. And it made me think of Matthew Shepard, who was a young man who died alone and was tied up and beaten, and he was killed just because he was gay. And it was incredibly sad, and I felt for Jussie Smollett, because I felt like that could have been him somewhere in the alley. No one would have known, and it was just horrible. And so I really felt for him, and I wanted justice for him, just like everybody else, everybody that came out and said it. So I don't feel bad because I wanted justice for whoever evil individual could attack this man. So I'm really hoping that these accusations are false. But if they are true, it is really, really despicable thing, and I will lose total respect for this individual. So it will be cut it. I wouldn't even deal with him. And really, it's an insult to real victims, I feel like, of discrimination and attacks that often are not believed, they have no voice, and often never receive justice. And just in this month alone, I got some stats from my favorite calendar from the Equal Justice Initiative. But on February the 6th, 1902, a mob of 200 white people seized a 19-year-old boy, Thomas Brown, from jail and lynched him in front of the courthouse steps after he was accused of assault in Nicholsville, Kentucky. On February 7th, 1904, a black man named Luther Holbert and an unidentified black woman, which, wow, say her name, was tortured, mutilated, and burned alive in front of 600 picnicking white spectators in Doddsville, Mississippi. February 1st, 1945, an all-white grand jury refused to indict any of the 6 white men accused of raping Miss Racy Taylor in Abbeville, Alabama, and they were never prosecuted. February 26, 2012, Trayvon Martin was shot in the heart in Sanford, Florida by George Zimmerman. He was not even going to face justice originally because of the Stand Your Ground law, but because of public outcry, he was indicted to ultimately not for the family to not receive justice ultimately. And so this is America. And when people who are victims of heinous crimes of hate and discrimination, and we have a long history, which we talked about earlier today, of it, when people play these type of games, it is nothing to play with. It is serious. A lot of people lost their lives in that respect, and it is disrespectful to them to do anything like that. So I'm really hoping that that is not the case. But do you think, as an officer, do you think Jussie Smollett should be worried?
You know, it's still under investigation. You know, he's probably, I don't know where he's at. I don't know whether he's, you know, he put in, said this is what happened to him. And so right now that's where it's at, you know.
But
we'll see. We'll see how this pans out.
So do you think Chicago police have something on him? Because, and is it common for information like this to be leaked out during an ongoing investigation? So finding out that, you know, the people that they had in question is saying that, oh no, we were paid to do this. I mean, is that typical for the police to leak that out during an investigation, or is that just like because they're dealing with a celebrity, or they just have that latitude to do that, or just somebody just let that out that shouldn't have been let out? Because now he's being tried through the court of opinion, and if this is not true, we just re-victimize the victim. If it is true, you know, are we trying to do a shame case in the public and then turn around and put them through the ringer in real trial? Like, is this something that sound like a normal way of handling it to you? I don't know.
Well, I mean, even the situation itself, I mean, I don't think it's common.
Right.
So with that being said, the way the police are handling it, the way, you know, investigating the whole nine, I don't see anything out of the ordinary. Right.
Okay.
I don't see anything out of it.
Okay. So we got to let people know, at the end of the day, you can't run from the police. You can't run from the police. So by now, if they don't understand that with Big Brother, it's cameras everywhere, from your cell phones to drones, Alexa, she's listening to you and telling the police, like, no, I'm just playing, DNA, etc. It just makes it easier, because I was surprised that they were able to get someone in custody that quick. But everyone has cameras on their cars and outside their business, and they're going to tie things together. And so, you know, when is people gonna learn, like, you cannot really get away? You ain't gonna tell all the tricks you guys got, do you? You can tell me though.
I
Give
don't know
people
any
some warning. I don't know.
I don't know any special.
You don't know those
tricks.
special tricks. You just do the training.
That's right.
You just doing the training. Okay, well, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, you know what, everybody, we ran out of time. I had a wonderful time with Officer Fred Gilmer. I hope to see you next week. Hear his lecture. Empathy Through American History is going to be a very, very special Black History event that you want to be a part of, because it's interactive.
Yes.
There's engagement with the audience, and I don't know anyone who can walk out of there and not have a changed mind or changed thought process on race and community relations between police and the community. So thank you again for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you again, and thank you all for listening. And this is Truth to Power. I'm your girl, Nicole, and this is Sin Digital Media, and we're out.